Hello everyone and welcome back to Brickcats. Today I'm reviewing the Brick Vault U-Wing designed by Caleb Ricks. Please consider leaving a like, subscribing to the channel, leaving a comment, or supporting what I do in any other way you see fit. I greatly appreciate it. The U-Wing served as a hybrid fighter and troop transport during the early Rebellion era, and this model is representing Cassian Andor's ship in Rogue One. The U-Wing shares the X-Wing's trademark T engine nacelles, and the S-foil mechanism sweeps the wings forward and backward depending on the situation. The belly section contains the troop transport area with sliding doors on either side, while the two pilots sit side by side in the cockpit. Instructions for this model cost $26.99 from Brick Vault's website, and it's worth noting this is a revision of the original U-Wing design that, from what I hear, makes a lot of structural improvements. Without any modifications to the parts list for the version you see here, which is labeled the Rogue Squadron U-Wing in the instructions file, Bricklink gave me 6 stores and $226 before shipping and tax, or about $268 including shipping and tax. The Blue Squadron version without substitutions was 6 stores and $245 without shipping and tax, or about $297 with shipping and tax. And my review will focus on the Rogue Squadron version you see here, but most, if not all, of the parts recommendations should apply to both. In my reviews, I offer my opinions on aesthetics and model features, parts issues you might want to look out for, the build experience, the model's integrity, and I close out with my overall impression and pricing information in the conclusion. If you're watching this review, I assume you have bought the instructions or are interested in buying them. And I also assume a basic level of familiarity with Bricklink's ordering system and LEGO nomenclature. I only use genuine LEGO bricks, and I always purchase the instructions. I create these reviews for my own personal enjoyment and in the hopes that my advice will make your experience more enjoyable and/or less expensive. The U-Wing measures 25.5 inches long, 10.5 inches wide with its wings in the forward position, and about 4.5 inches tall if sitting on a flat surface. That's 64.8 by 25.4 by 11.4 centimeters. The wingspan increases to about 40.5 inches or 103 centimeters with the wings unfolded. I'm not going to do it right now just because it's a little big, but I'll include a picture. And of course the wings do swing back and forth, but if you have them open you need to use the included supports underneath. You can barely see here, I'll show you better later, to hold their weight as they kind of sag. Which honestly is pretty expected with a model this size. The Technic piece that holds the wings tends to hit this little panel right here when you're opening it. You can kind of maybe hear it catch. So over time, I think that panel is going to wear down. This is a little bit annoying, but I have a feeling, like I said, most people aren't going to be opening and closing these very often. And what I really love about this model is the stubble angle created along the outer edge of the wing here. It goes from about 6 brick, maybe 5 or 6 brick widths to about 3. And that takes advantage of LEGO pieces' ability to bend slightly and the slight tolerance error. So it's actually connected here, and you can maybe just barely see that it's not quite square like it's supposed to be. You might have seen it earlier, but the only connection point when the wings are in the closed position is this hollow stud right here, which makes it easy to open. The cabin assembly looks really good, and the vent section at the front is cleverly done with ladder pieces. The cockpit piece used is the 13252 windscreen from the UCS X-Wings, and this top section lifts off fairly easily for easy access to the cockpit. Like on the X-Wings, the 13252 windscreen is not cabin accurate as it narrows towards the top instead of the bottom, and the U-Wing cockpit and cabin is actually more square. But this is the best piece for the fighter if you want an actual windscreen instead of brick building the cockpit. I also really like the inclusion of these side windows on the cockpit section, which is a detail that we don't often see in U-Wing models. The two pilots sit side by side with a small gap in between, and each has their own set of controls. The control panels are a little bit far away from the pilots, but this is pretty easy to fix if you just want to use a brick to move them one brick closer. And these seats are supposed to be, they're specified in brown actually, but I changed it to reddish brown, and then my Bricklink seller sent me dark orange instead of reddish brown tiles. But I think that's all fine. Brown, reddish brown, dark orange, it doesn't matter, as long as it's a seat color. And then on the underside pilot's window is included using trans clear bricks. This might be a little small to be strictly cam accurate, but it does the job just fine. And also included are these little side windows with these trans clear flag pieces. The section that holds the underside window is really impressive, and one of my other favorite details on this model is how the designer doesn't just continue this section forward, he actually builds it in two separate parts, and there's this little vent on either side, which is cam accurate, and it gives the U-Wing kind of a really nice profile. The doors have a neat double hinge construction that allows them to swing out and slide back. See the mechanism in there, and this slides along a Technic axle in there. However, when the fighter is horizontal, there's not enough friction in that connection to prevent the door from sagging. And when closed, I haven't been able to get the doors perfectly flush with the rest of the hull, but you can get it pretty close. You can see there's just a small gap right here. I also like the inclusion of this little handle, which of course is not cam accurate, but it's a nice nod to the functionality of the model. And then the trans clear bricks make up the windows on the door. Looking inside the passenger section, if you can see, not great lighting there, sorry, but there are some nice details, including the little circular section here. There is no bench, which was kind of a curious omission to me, but this wouldn't be very difficult to put in if you wanted to, and there are some studs in there to mount minifigures. And minifigures are able to stand up full height inside the passenger bay. The last major section is the engine assembly, and these are essentially all the same, but oriented slightly differently to accommodate the Technic lift arm that connects the engine to the frame. I mentioned earlier the T-shaped nacelle on the front, and I really like the blue stripe wrapping around the front intake section as well. I think my main issue with the engines kind of as a whole is that they're supposed to be a uniform diameter from this part here to the back right here, but the designer has elected to have kind of varying widths or sections in the engine to add in some of the detailing like these grill tiles and things like that. So definitely not bad. Just my personal preference would have been for a uniform diameter here. And I think according to Canon, there's also supposed to be a blue stripe on the very back here. So you could replace these 2x2 curve slopes with 1x2 curve slopes in blue and white, and you'd need 32 of those to go around the entire circumference there. Wouldn't be hard to do, but more pieces, more money, etc. So the omission makes sense to me, I guess, but cabin accuracy would dictate those be there. There is no stand included with this model, so I put one together fairly quickly, and it's essentially just a column of 2x4 bricks. And I think the lack of a stand is quite a shame, as this model looks really, really good, and if you could get it to mount at a slight angle and not worry too much about it falling over, then that would be incredible. But I think getting the fighter off your display surface a few inches makes a big difference, and for review purposes I put this on a turntable. If I was just putting this on my shelf, I'd probably just put a 4x4 plate in there or something just to stud it in. If you've been watching the channel for any length of time, you know that the U-Wing and Rogue One are two of my favorite ships and movies in the Star Wars franchise. And this model is a really, really great representation of the U-Wing. The few issues I have with it, like the engines, are reasonable trade-offs to add visual details, and it has some really nice functionality with the double jointed doors and the wings. The Rogue Squadron version requires 289 elements and 2,679 pieces. Overall, I thought this model did a great job with parts usage, and there aren't too many expensive or really rare elements. The 2 Technic Axle 12L, specified in white, part 3708, is much less common than the plain black axle, and it's very difficult to see to begin with. These form the rail that the sliding doors move on, and of course at this angle you can't see it, but trust me, white, black doesn't matter. The model calls for 105 Technic Pin 1/2 without friction ridges in blue, part 4274. Light bluish gray works just fine as they are all hidden. 32 out of the 38 bracket 1x2, 2x2 inverted are used for these sections of the engines. They're right behind the grille tiles here. A neutral color like dark bluish gray, white, or black will work very well. 4 of the remaining 6 are completely hidden inside each engine and can be any color. The last 2 are right here on the underside of each wing, and these help support this long leading edge part from underneath. So it does need to be a bracket, but again, any neutral color would work. And you can kind of see the other side of this bracket here and here. So like tan or maybe dark bluish gray would be okay there too. The 20 plate round 2x2 with axle hole in black, part 4032, are hidden inside the engine assemblies and can be any color. 4 of the 6 bar 6L with stop rings, part 63965, are specified in black. These can be any color as these are also inside the engines, while the other 2 form the cannons, so those should be black. 4 out of the 6 brick modified 1x1 with studs on 4 sides, part 4733 in black, are also hidden inside the engines and can be any color. And again, the other 2 are right here in the cannon assembly, so you want to keep those 2 black. The 4 hinge plate 1x2 with 3 fingers in white, part 4275. These can be randomly expensive, so make sure you're not paying, or make sure you are paying a reasonable amount. And in my opinion, the color here doesn't matter too much, as these hinges are only visible with the doors open. And the hinges create this angle along the side of the underside of the fighter here. I mentioned before that the 2 seats, the cockpit seats, call for a total of 8 1x2 tiles, part 3069, 2 modified tile 1x1 with clip, part 2555, and 2 1x2 plates, part 3023, all in brown. And these seem to be much more common in reddish brown, and for the clip piece, either the old style or the newer style with the O-clip will work just fine. The hose 6L in black, part 75C06, is completely hidden and can be any color. And this is the connection point for this angled section right about here. The plant tree palm top in black, part 2566, is most common in black, but any color works as they are hidden inside the engine assemblies. I think I had yellow or something. Or no, I think I had brown. The 2 instrument panels that you can see inside the cockpit here, the specified parts are 85984 PB127, but these are of course interchangeable with pretty much any other printed slope or tile with instrumentation on it. So if you already have some, feel free to substitute those in. The most expensive element in this model is the windscreen piece right here. The 12x6x2 with locking dual 2 fingers hinge, part number 13252. And like I said in the aesthetics section, this is the windscreen LEGO used for the UCS X-Wings and is now retired. Back when I reviewed Julio SW's U-Wing, these were very expensive, but since then there are a few sellers on Bricklink offering them for under $20 in the United States, and that's actually a pretty good deal. I actually got mine from a Dutch seller who had reasonable shipping prices to the US that, I ordered a bunch of parts from that store that were difficult to find in the States here, so it saved me money in the end. But if you can get one for about $20 from a US Bricklink seller, that's a good deal. However, if you can't get one for cheap, you can substitute in 6 inexpensive pieces to make a decent looking brick-built windscreen that in my opinion looks perfectly fine. And to do this, you need 2 each of the plate modified 1x2 with clip on end horizontal grip. That's right here. 2 additional tile 1x6 part 6636 in white right here. And 2 plate round 1x1 with bar handle, part 26047. And obviously these are all in white. So here is how the cockpit looks with a brick-built solution. I think it looks fine. I think the windscreen probably looks a little bit better, but the nice thing about the brick-built solution is that you can make the cockpit slightly more accurate by just having these go straight instead of having to splay out like that. Finally, and to no one's surprise, if you've been watching my channel for the last year or so, you can save a significant amount on the cost of certain elements by ordering directly from LEGO Pick-a-Brick. Pick-a-Brick bestsellers ship from Illinois within 5 business days, and in my experience, this is true. And if you spend more than $14, you eliminate the $3.50 handling charge, and if you spend more than $35, you get free shipping. Pick-a-Brick standard parts ship within 2 weeks from Denmark, and the advantage here is that there's a wider selection to choose from. And for orders over $14, you eliminate a fairly steep $7 service charge, and again, if you spend more than $35, you get free shipping. Obviously, this means it's to your advantage to order as much as possible from Pick-a-Brick, even though you might pay slightly more for certain elements. As the more you order from LEGO, the greater the odds you'll be able to eliminate the shipping and handling charges, and also reduce your Bricklink store count. And the following elements I found were good candidates to order directly from Pick-a-Brick, as they're probably going to cost less directly from LEGO as opposed to on Bricklink. The Rogue Squadron U-Wing instructions consist of 768 steps, and I thought the pacing of the instructions was pretty good. And what I mean by this is that there aren't too many elements added in a single step, but also it's generally not one piece at a time, so you don't lose a ton of time scrolling through like you would if you had to add one piece at a time. I found 3 steps that had viewing angle problems. In step 372, you can't see where the yellow 1x2 tile goes until step 375. In step 481, you can't see which brick has the stud on it, and I'm not sure it really matters, but if I had to guess, I'm not entirely sure why it's a brick with a stud on the side in the first place, and I assumed that it faced downwards, and I chose the outermost brick as the one with the open stud. It's right here. The last viewing angle issue I found was in step 623, and it's also in step 652, but since these are the engines, it's just basically the same step for a different engine. And you can't exactly see from the instructions where the 1x4 snot brick goes. It's fairly easy to figure out based on the construction of the engine, but it would have been nice if it was just shown. And finally, there was only one connection that I have a lot of trouble with in step 355, and that was these side sections to either side of the underside cockpit window. After you get the droid arms that hold this section to finally click together, well, first of all, I recommend removing these panels just because they're slightly forward of where the end of those sections are. So it just makes it a little easier to slide those assemblies in and connect the droid arms inside there. And you can tell that behind here, this is pretty solid. It doesn't move very often, so it's pretty easy to just add this back in after you're done. Other than these issues, the build goes fairly smoothly, and it took me probably about 7 or 8 hours spread across a couple of evenings without pre-sorting any of the parts. According to BrickVault's video of version 2, version 1 was very delicate and prone to breaking if you tried to move it. And if any of you had a version 1, I'd love to hear how bad it actually was, or if it wasn't that bad at all. So I obviously did not build version 1, so I don't have that as a point of reference, but this U-Wing is a little delicate in some places, but generally not too bad as far as mocks goes. Mocks go, rather. You can grab it by the engine block back here to swoosh it around. The model is fairly heavy, so it's not the most comfortable thing to do, but it is possible. The engine assemblies are connected with 2 Technic pins, and they are locked in place, so they're not easy to remove. They're not going to come off by themselves. The intake sections are made of all these curved slopes, so they're kind of easy to bump out of alignment, but not too bad to put back. And the exhaust sub-assemblies can be very secure, or they can be relatively weak. They're only connected with a single stud with a bar running through it. So it really depends on the luck of the draw with the piece you get, and if that connection is strong or not. On mine, depending on what I edit out, these two are for some reason much weaker than these two. These two very rarely come off, but when my cat bumps either of these, they tend to fall off very easily. The side assemblies for the cockpit area are fairly fragile, but they're also pretty easy to put back together. It's not too big of a deal there. And when you're moving the cockpit on and off, you are kind of grabbing the most delicate area, unfortunately. But not too bad once you get the hang of it. You can see that one just fell off there. These two 1x2 slopes right at the bottom here are only connected with one stud. So on mine, these come off frustratingly often, and it's actually kind of annoying to put them back in place. So I would be careful when you're handling around this area, like if you grab it and put your palm here or something like that, those can fall off. And about the wings, you can see me kind of gingerly turning this over. Since the only clutch strength you get on these wings to hold them in the closed position is that one lone hollow stud, these wings are prone to flying open if you're swishing this too hard. Let's see if I can do it here, like that. So I think I would have liked it would be very difficult, I think, without a major redesign, but the toe ball connection on some of the other U-Wing mocks is a lot stronger. And the problem really becomes, I will demonstrate, if this flies open on you and the edge hits a hard surface, the entire outer edge of the wing tends to come off. And you can see the construction of it, so it's very long, and because that connection is not exactly stable, due to it being at an angle, that tends to fly off fairly easily. I mentioned earlier, when the wing opens, the Technic piece rubs against the panel right next to it. You can maybe hear the clicking sound. So again, over time, I think if you do this a lot, this panel is going to have a little worn down edge right in here. And the wings do droop a fair amount if they're open. I'll just open it a little bit and show you just how bad the droop actually is. So just make sure if you're going to put the wings open, you use the supports. And here you can see that the other wing opened when I had it tilted at an angle, and again that hollow stud is not strong enough to really hold the weight. So in conclusion, the U-Wing is going to be fine sitting on display or with casual swooshing. And the areas you're most likely to be manipulating, like the cockpit, the doors, and the wings, are all reasonably stable. And if you're building this in the first place, you're going to be able to tell where the delicate areas are. So that's not going to be a surprise. And I think the biggest issue, and if I were to make a suggestion for future versions, it would be strengthening this wing connection. Even with the hollow stud right here, it's not entirely square with the fuselage. You might be able to see just the slightest mismatch in the angle here. Like the gap here is a lot larger than where it connects here. So that contributes to the lack of clutch strength on the wings. The Brickvault U-Wing is an excellent model, and is the most screen-accurate minifig scale model of U-Wing that I'm aware of. The minor shaping and detailing issues on the engines are balanced out by the accuracy of the wing shape, and for me, the shape of the wings is what will make or break a U-Wing model. It's strong enough to be handled with a light touch. It's a pretty smooth build, and in my opinion, the price is very reasonable for a model of this size. And for size comparison purposes, the much larger Brickvault U-Wing in the background compared to the official U-Wing. The official U-Wing is about 2/3 the length of the Brickvault one. Like I stated in the introduction, without any modifications to the parts list, Bricklink gave me 6 stores and $226 before shipping and tax, or about $268 including shipping and tax for the Rogue Squadron version. With the color substitutions and eliminating the windscreen in favor of the brick-built method, I got the Rogue Squadron version down to 4 stores and $198 before shipping and tax, or about $226 after shipping and tax. And by sourcing parts directly from LEGO, I estimate you could save another 15% or so and get this down to around or even under $200 total. I'll put a link in the description to the Brickvault page where you can buy the instructions if you so choose, as well as to Caleb Rix's Flickr page. So thanks as always for watching my review of the Brickvault U-Wing by Caleb Rix. If you built this model, you have something to share that I left out, or have a question about something I didn't cover, please leave them below in the comments. I'm especially interested to hear your thoughts on version 1 if it was as delicate as I've heard it is. Remember to leave the video a like, subscribe to the channel, or follow me on Instagram if you haven't already, and I hope to see you back next time.